My presentation is called STEAM Education for Every Child, but what I really want to focus on is maker education. Maker education is my specialty, and maker education includes STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So the question I have for you is, who is a maker? Are you a maker? Who is a maker? Are you a maker? Would you consider yourself a maker? Think about that. So I wanted to point to a story. This is a book by Dave Lang called Zero to Maker. And Dave writes about how he knew nothing about tools. He knew nothing about making until he decided he wanted to build an underwater explorer robot. And he met up with a maker, and he learned about what it meant to be a maker. And this book tells his story. I love the story because he knew nothing about making until he came along and he had something that he wanted to make. And now he's turned this into a business. So Dale Doherty, he's the founder and CEO of Make Magazine and Maker Faire. How many of you have heard of Maker Faire before? How many of you have heard of Maker Faire? So a few of you have. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But Dale, this is a quote from him. He said, "America was built by makers, curious, enthusiastic, amateur inventors, whose tinkering habits sparked whole new industries." Here's a picture of Dale and I. This is at Maker Faire back in May in the Bay Area, just south of San Francisco and San Mateo. And he just kind of hangs out with everybody there, even though he's kind of a maker celebrity. This is from a book that he wrote, and I think he describes what a maker is in some really good terms here. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. A maker is someone who creates and shares projects. A maker is creative, not afraid of failure, playful. They make all kinds of things for personal, social, and commercial purposes. And I'm going to show how that played out in my life a little bit as well. I like the playful aspect also. There's a real emphasis on play and fun. Making is fun. Making is fun. Values making and creating over using and consuming. Getting kids off of screens. Getting them off of screens and getting them actually building and making something. They can be, a maker can be any age, from any culture, and a maker loves to share their projects. That's going to come into play when we talk about Maker Faire, because Maker Faire is a place where makers share projects. He also says that making is in our human DNA. We were born to make. This is what Dale says in his book. So Maker Faire, a couple years ago, their slogan was, "We are all makers." So if you're wondering if you're a maker or not, we are all makers. So what I'm going to cover today is I'm going to talk about my maker story a little bit. I'm going to go back many years when I was a child and talk about my childhood as a maker. And then the importance of getting making into schools here in Taiwan, in California, all over the world. And then practical tips. When I give a presentation, I like to give practical tips, things that you can take with you. If you're looking to set up a maker space at your school or in your community, these are some things that you can take with you. So here I am as a kid, a goofy kid here in California. I've been a maker pretty much my whole life. My dad, he liked to make things. My grandfather, he liked to make things. And my father let me learn alongside of him, and I was really thankful for that. He allowed me to learn how to use tools, how to work with different materials, and I was really grateful. So this is a train set that I had when I was a kid. This is a glider that I'm building right here. It's a balsa wood glider that has a big wingspan about this big. And this glider took many, many hours to make. Maybe 40, 50 hours to make. My dad and I, we took it out to fly it, and in about 30 seconds we crashed it into 1,000 pieces. And that was that. Makers are not afraid of failure, and I'm grateful for that. I picked up the pieces, and I kept going with my next project. This is our a basement at our house in San Jose, and we turned it into a maker space for our children as well. So my wife, Angie, has a space where she does her crafting. She likes textiles and sewing. my kids have their space and I have my space. It's got to be a little bit messy. And so that's our basement makerspace. So kind of my journey with the modern maker movement, it started out with an issue of Make magazine. And I know some issues of Make are translated into Chinese, which I was excited to hear about. And I first heard about Make from a friend of mine who's a physics professor in California at Cal Poly State University, my alma mater. And my friend Brian gave me this magazine, and it had an article on how to turn an old VCR into a cat food feeder, an automatic cat food feeder. And I thought, that's a crazy project. That's a crazy project. That's fun. That's playful. But this magazine is for people who are engineers. I was never really good at math. I was never really great at science. In fact, my favorite classes in school were wood shop, metal shop, hands-on making classes. And I thought this is for people much, much smarter than me. But again, I didn't give up, and I proposed an idea to the editor of this magazine. I'd always been interested in rockets as well. You'll see I like flying things. I like things that fly. So I proposed an idea. This was a rocket launcher that was made out of PVC pipe and a sprinkler valve that would trigger the launcher. So you put the launcher under pressure, and then you press a button, and it fires this rocket up into the air. Well, the editor liked the idea, and before I knew it, I had published my first article in Make magazine. And I was sharing my idea, my maker idea, with the rest of the world. And there it is right there. This is in 2008 in Make issue 15. Make is up to issue 63 currently. So dozens more articles were published. I published about 25 more articles on different maker projects. And then I published my first book, of course, on flying projects, right? So these were simple things that anyone could make, kites and copters too. And then I said, I don't want to do any more books. Books are too much work. And I said, I'm not going to write any more books. Well, what did I do? I wrote my next book in 2018. And this was published in January of this year. And this is on the MBOT platform. And it's conceive, construct, and code your own robots at home or in the classroom. And I co-wrote this with Andrew Carl, who's a maker and a teacher in South Korea. So we had to collaborate on our book across the Pacific Ocean. It was a great collaboration. I'm glad I did it. Never want to do a book again. And then I took my personal maker interest to the professional world as I formed a company called airrocketworks.com. And with this, we took the old rocket launcher design, we improved it, and we made it safer. We made it more compact, much easier. And that's several versions ago there in that picture. And then we even built a launcher for NASA for paper rockets and for the United Launch Alliance, which was very exciting. I partnered with another maker on the east coast of the United States in New Hampshire, and now we work together to form this company. So basically, you fold a piece of paper into a rocket shape, you tape it together, and this is what it comes out looking like, a paper rocket. This is to get kids excited. Maybe they'll join NASA someday. Maybe they'll be an astronaut because they did paper rockets as a kid. There's also a foam version as well, right here. And I thought, well, I'll bring a launcher to Taiwan with me. So this past weekend, what do? We had a rocket party in Taichung. And so this is on Saturday. We brought our rocket launcher and some parts with us. And here we are in front of the National Theater of Taichung launching rockets, which was pretty amazing. And I've got a rocket launcher here that I'm going to show you real quick, so I'm going to put the microphone down. So how do you get the rocket launcher pressurized? You use a bicycle pump. That's how you put the air into the launcher. brought a bicycle home from California also. And I have a foam rocket. Do you want to catch a rocket in the back? Do you want me to launch one? In the back? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Just a little bit of air, okay? Just a little bit. You ready in the back?
Yeah.
Almost got it. I love to bring rockets wherever I go, especially launching them inside is fun. Okay, so this was our rocket party. It was really fun launching them in front of the National Theater. So I do want to say this really showed me that making is alive and well here in Taiwan. I was amazed at all the maker spaces. One of the first places we went to was the Creative Park. We came across the Fab Cafe. What do you found? It was a place where you can get a coffee, you could run a 3D printer or a laser cutter. Amazing. This is a place that I haven't been to, but I want to go to this. It's called Future Forward. And I love their slogan, working towards a better future. Isn't that what we want our kids doing? Is working towards a better future? I love that. And then I met maker Choi in Taichung, and he runs a little space in a creative park there. His specialty is lightsabers. And he makes all kinds of lightsabers. This is his lightsaber umbrella. I love it. So getting back to sharing, makers like to share. The place to do that is at Maker Faire. And we took our kids to Maker Faire when they were really young. That's my son and daughter. They're 15 and 18 now. So you can see this was a long time ago. And they really went to Maker Faire, they got excited, and they got inspired for projects. Taipei's got one too. This is the Taipei Maker Faire, which is coming up in November. I understand it's quite a bit cooler here in November as well. So I think Maker Faire Taipei has been going on for a number of years. But this is a question that Dale asks in his book. What happens on Monday when kids head back to school after being inspired at Maker Faire? So the key is to get Maker Fairs into schools. This is one of my students, Jushin, and he made a homemade flamethrower. This was a little bit dangerous, but sometimes that's fun too. It's a little bit dangerous. And I try to say yes when kids have ideas for projects. So I'm really lucky to be able to take the maker space and actually have one in our school, which is great. So this is my friend Laura and Maker Steve as well, who's a teacher in Taichung, and he actually has a maker space at his school in Taichung. And we got to visit his classroom on Saturday and saw the different projects they were working on and that kind of thing. Also on his shelf I noticed Make Magazine, which was translated into Chinese. And that was very exciting, especially because one of the magazines had one of my articles in it on an air rocket glider. So that was very cool that I got to see that. And there's my picture there. And this is kind of a maker celebrity from a show called Mythbusters, Granny Mahara. And so that was very exciting, so I had to take a picture of that. So my teacher world and my maker world, they came together. They collided in 2016. So after 23 years of teaching middle school, I taught US history, taught English, taught some computers, things like that. In 2016, we started Steindorf STEAM School in the same school district where I was teaching before. And we serve 500 kids in kindergarten through 8th grade every day. I didn't do it alone. I'm the Maker Lab teacher, but this is the rest of my team right here. And it really takes an amazing team to to create such an amazing school. And I'm really lucky to work with all of these people, amazing principal and very dedicated educators. These are the teachers from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. So this is what I'm doing now. I teach 500 kids a week, one teacher, just me, and we work on a very small budget because it's a public school. So I like to say they're really getting their money's worth out of me. So let's take a look at a few different things here. First, let's take a look at the program, the space, the tools, and then the resources. So first off, I wanted to mention about kind of the kids maker mindset. So kids aren't just necessarily, making's not necessarily going to come easy right away, because kids are so used to being on a screen, they're so used to watching things. It's really funny to watch kids here in Taiwan because they're very, very similar to kids in the United States also. They got their screen up on the subway, wherever they're at, they're watching things in restaurants. And so we have to get kids, to think differently. Take the screens away for a little while and get them actually making things and creating things. So maker programs should be active, hands-on, and collaborative. Kids have to be able to work together. They have to be able to work together to solve problems. And then the kids need to learn skills that they can apply to projects later. So this is the engineering design model that we use over here. Ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. And I have that on a resource that will be available to you online as well. And I'll show you that at the end of my presentation. So the program is really determined by your space needs. So these are some different models right here. Right now, you can either do a mobile program where you move your maker materials around to different classrooms. You can rotate stations within a single workshop. You can do scheduled classes. So that's currently what I do at Steindorf. I teach 2 6th grade classes 2 times a week, 2 7th grade classes 2 times a week, and then 3 8th grade classes. And then for the K-5 program, the kindergarten through 5th grade, the K-2 rotates in every other week, and then the 3 through 5 every week for an hour. So this is a massive amount of material that I have to create, a massive amount of curriculum, and I see lots of kids every week. The middle school kids, I know their names because I'm their regular teacher. I'm part of their regular schedule. The younger kids, it's very hard to remember their names because I only have them for about an hour a week, so I do the best I can. But we are a pretty small school by California standards with only 500 kids. It's fairly small for California. So this is a lot of information, but this is essentially what my curriculum covers right now. This is kind of always changing and I'm always updating it. But right now I'm working on balancing teaching skills with working on projects, and also supporting project-based learning, because we have project-based learning throughout our whole school. And the core projects for the middle schoolers, for 6th grade we do structural engineering, electrical engineering, and then in 7th, robotics and sensors, the Makey board along with Scratch, and then in 7th grade, aeronautical engineering, and then in 8th grade, VEX robotics, which is a more advanced robotics program. So I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit now. So other things we weave in there is I really enjoy woodworking. So we do woodworking where the kids learn how to use hand tools, learning how to measure things, how to clamp things, how to cut things safely. Power tools, using the drill press, sander, scroll saw, and the power drill. And then also design and fabrication using more of the high-tech equipment, like 3D printers, laser cutters, and those things. And I'll kind of show you some of my favorites of those as well. Also, I realized that in order for the kids to learn these pieces of equipment, they needed to have kind of a step-by-step directions or a guide to help them. The laser cutter is a fairly complex piece of equipment. The kids have to learn how to create the files on the computer in order to use the laser cutter. So that's where the project guide came in. So I had a friend that actually helped me with this one. We started off with a very basic project where they choose a shape, they import that shape into the software, they adjust it to create a vector file. then they laser cut the shape, and then they can decorate it. So that was a project guide. We're doing this for the 3D printer as well. We're also going to do it for the CNC router. And then these are future projects I'm looking at doing. I really want to get more into IoT, Internet of Things. I love things that fly. I love drones and quadcopters, electric go-karts. These are all things that I love. And then getting more into advanced robotics as well. Because I don't have an engineering background, and I come from teaching history and English, I learn a lot as I'm going. So I learn just a little bit before the kids, and then that's the way it works when you're a maker. You're just always learning. So for the K-5, these are some of my favorite things. And I'll show you some pictures of these different stations that we do. We basically set up 8 stations around the classroom, and then the kids rotate around to those different stations. So for each grade level, the whole grade level comes in at once. So that's about 55 kids. It's me, 55 kids, and then one other teacher. So I have to have things where all the kids are very busy, and the kids are making things and really engaged. And it's worked pretty well so far. So this is the marble runs. So they spend about an hour working at this station, and then when they come back the next week, they'll rotate to a different station. Well, everybody knows what those are, Legos. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, everybody loves Legos. Legos work for all grade levels as well. These are kindergartners here. This is a platform called Little Bits, if you're familiar with Little Bits, where kids create circuits. This is snap circuits. They had snap circuits back when I was a kid, and the kids learned how to create circuits and build circuits with these. This is the Dash robots, and this is scalable as well. You can start off real basic, but then you can add programming to the Dash robot platform. This is called Strawbees. It's actually a maker in Sweden that developed these. It uses drinking straws and little paper connectors to build all kinds of different structures and things. And then these are just called sticks and connectors. I like this because they can build big. You can see how much the kids enjoy building big, right? They love it. They built something so big, I said, build something that you can get 15 kids in. And they did this in about a half an hour. It was really cool, working together. And then also, I work to support project-based learning throughout the school. This is a miniature golf course based on ancient civilizations that the 6th graders built. And then the little kids got to come and play golf, and they got to make their way through the whole school golf course. There were a full 18 holes of miniature golf. This is doing a parachute. We're doing a parachute prototype here. Later, I took the parachutes and I hooked them up to my drone and took them way up to about 200 feet and dropped them, and that's how we tested them on the playground. This is a wind tube, or a wind tunnel. And this is stomp rockets. The little kids enjoy these because you just stomp on the bottle and then it launches the rocket. So it's kind of a low-pressure launcher. Let's take a look at the space. So it doesn't really matter what space you have, whether it's big or small. It can really work for all kids, no matter your size or your budget. So let's take a look at a couple of spaces and where I started out. This is the maker corner in my old classroom. This is at the old middle school where I used to teach. And I just had a little corner, and I had maker stuff there in the corner of my classroom. This is my friend David Wells, who works at the New York Hall of Science. And this is his maker space. It's 1,200 square feet. As you can see, it's beautiful. This is a friend, Kristen Hutchinson, who runs a maker space out of the back of her car. And she drives around to different places. 4 locations, 40 projects, 56 students, ages 8 to 15 and 15 weeks. So that was pretty amazing. Sounds tiring. I don't think she's doing it anymore. This is a maker space that I helped start in a neighborhood in San Jose. And we actually made the building a maker building. We custom designed a 14-foot by 16-foot custom workshop. And we liked it so much that we wrote it up for Make Magazine issue 40. And the structure is actually a make structure that's put together kind of like Legos. This is what my classroom looked like 3 years ago. And I didn't know if they were going to have it done before school was going to start. But I'm glad they did. And that's what it looks like now. So this is my classroom. It's over 3,000 square feet. It's a double-wide classroom. It looks pretty neat right here. It's usually not that neat, though. And there's a door that opens up to the outside, which is really nice because we can kind of move our projects outside if we want. And this is the other side of the classroom. Another way to do it is using like a mobile maker cart. These are ones that you can buy. I don't really like these too much because they just look too professional. They don't look maker enough. So this is more what I like. This is like a DIY mobile maker cart here. This is one that my friend Landy designed. He's a maker friend of mine. He drew it up in SketchUp, and then that's what it looked like in the end. We built this for one of our elementary schools. They didn't have a classroom, but they wanted to take tools and materials into different classrooms. So that's why we built this cart. And then I call this my big $150 workbench. And I built 3 of these for my classroom because they're real big to put tools on. You can store things underneath. They work really great. So speaking of tools, these are some of my favorite. This is called the X-Carve, and it's a CNC router. And the kids designed their projects using an online program called Easel to use this CNC router. The 3D printer, the design for this is it's a free online program called Tinkercad, which allows kids to do 3D design. This is our laser cutter. For this piece of equipment, they use a program called Inkscape, which is a free program very similar to Adobe Illustrator that allows them to create vector files for the laser cutter. And then some of my favorite power tools are the scroll saw. Maker Steve down in Taichung, he had quite a few scroll saws. They work really well with kids. Even as young as about 10 years old, they can use it safely. And a drill press. And then a vise is very handy for clamping your work in. I have the hand tools up on a tool wall for organization. These are some of my favorite low-tech tools. Very cheap, the glue gun. $5, and you can do all kinds of things with it. Cardboard cutter on top. Kids love that. It's a power tool, electric cardboard cutter, and a manual drill. And these are some of my favorite low-tech materials for making. Cardboard tubes, cereal boxes, and craft sticks, and corks as well. So storage is always an issue, especially with so many kids. So here's a quick look at storage. I found these rolling shelves to be handy. They're wire shelves, and you can move them around where you want them to go, along with clear plastic bins for storing materials, bins of different sizes. And then I built some shelves up above the tool wall to hold lighter projects. These are paper roller coasters on the very top. And then the shoe boxes were for another project that we were working on. So let's take a look at the Maker Lab in action. Here's Justin again with his homemade flamethrower. The kids get to pick some of the projects on their own that they want to make, and then they really take ownership, and they're very proud to show them off. Here we are. It was a beautiful California day, so we opened up the classroom, and we spilled into the outside, which was great. Here we're doing some M-bots. I think it's kind of a battle bot type thing that they were doing. This is a cardboard automata. A couple of those. This is Lizette. She's showing off her homemade candy dispenser. This is a Plinko game. The kids had to design arcade games based on ancient civilization themes. These are the 6th grade. Here's the marble paper roller coaster. The 8th graders made some games for outside. This is a game called beanbag toss or cornhole. Anna, she made a automatic marshmallow roaster. It roasts mini marshmallows. That's a close-up of the design with a homemade switch even, which is really cool. Here's Annika using the scroll saw. She forgot to put on her safety glasses. Oops. And here the kids are showing off some laser cut shapes that they did. Learning how to cut safely. Homemade ukuleles made out of cardboard, and we made those on the laser cutter. And here's Neon with hers. This is like a Rube Goldberg type machine, a contraption. And they're doing something with fabric here. Sometimes we just have an open make session, so the kids will maybe have an hour just to make what they want and to be creative. And they just love it. Once they get used to it, it's really easy for them to come up with ideas. So here's some resources to share before I conclude. First off, this is my website here. And I'm really trying to use my website as like a clearinghouse for materials. So anytime I come up with ideas or good resources, I like to share them on my website. In fact, I'll put this presentation on my website as well, so you can find it there. Makescene.com is the Make version, is the Make online. You can get information on Maker Faire. It'll have a connection to Maker Faire Taipei. And lots of project ideas as well. Instructables.com is based out of San Francisco. It has an amazing number of projects, thousands and thousands of projects. My son and I built an electric skateboard using a design on Instructables, which was really fun and it goes really fast. We can imagine ourselves zipping through the streets of Taipei on it. Makered.org, really good planning website for planning out your Maker program and maybe what it looks like for your location. Digital Promise, also a good one for looking at leadership and how to manage your program. And then these are a few books as well. These are on the Makey Makey platform. And then my books, I had to throw them in there. The Tinker Kit is just a little motor and battery and some things, all kinds of different projects that you can do with just some very simple materials. And I like to say if you had a $1,000 budget, these are some things that you can start off with. I really like the Makey Makey board. It's $50 US. This year I'm going to be doing a lot with the microbit as well by the BBC. If you're familiar with the microbit, there's all kinds of different projects that you can do with that because it has Bluetooth as well. So I'm excited to get to know the microbit better. And then more of my favorite stuff as your budget grows. Laser cutters, the full spectrum or the Glow Forge. And just to highlight a few things, excuse me. There's the Scratch program that was developed at MIT to learn graphical programming, and then that interfaces with Arduino and other microcontrollers. And these are two handouts that I'll have on my website, and I believe also on the conference website as well, that'll really outline, just kind of briefly, a lot of my favorite things. And then also a diagram of the engineering design process. And that takes us back to the beginning. So again, I just really enjoyed our time together, and I want to thank you again very much for inviting me to speak, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. Thank you so much.